Hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. Well, as I said last Sunday, I have decided to revive the bad film section of my videos because, as I said, you learn as much from bad filmmaking as you do from excellent filmmaking. And so I thought I would go deep into the vaults for one of the classic horror movies. And when I say horror movies, I don't mean the genre, I mean horror in filmmaking and horror in what you see on screen, with the 1987 Garbage Pail Kids Movie. And it's an interesting deconstruction of how you can see the mechanics of why producers would turn to Rodamato and say, we want to make a film based on these cards that has the same kind of feeling as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film that came out around the same time. That same slightly grimy, prosthetic-centric, street kids kind of film. You can see the sort of the strings there. And on paper, this should be a proper 1980s kids classic. Yes, they knew what they were doing, but man, they did not know what they were doing. For a start, okay, so, of course, because of my age bracket, I can only come at the Garbage Pail Kids from the perspective of having seen this film. I have no awareness of the cards. I don't know how popular they were. I obviously grew up in the Pokemon Kids era, where, trading cards were actually good. And so the meaning of the franchise has no bearing on me. But based on what I understand of them and the opening title sequence, which throws the cards at you, which is a great, I suppose, sales ploy to go, oh, see, these are based on cards that are based on dolls that are a parody of the Cabbage Patch Kids dolls, which has seemed to have survived and done a lot better over the decades than the Garbage Pail Kids, because I still, over the last last 20 years, I've definitely seen children's commercials for Cabbage Patch Kids. I've never seen a Garbage Pail Kids commercial in my entire life. But I understand the cards were popular. And so you kind of get to that point where you think, well, there is something quite, this is during the era of, as I say, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and sort of Legend and the slightly more darker, more sort of like, not quite grotesque, but like kids are wanting something a little bit less child-friendly, as it were. And so the appeal of these slightly weirder looking, slightly more like Grand Guignol sort of style of characters made sense. And yet, I keep coming back to the fact that I can't quite work out at what point you go from producing this, deciding you're going to make it, to it just being this Frankenstein of ideas where you think, I feel like a better director, maybe I'm possibly throwing Rodamato under the bus, but or better producers would have been able to visualise this style so much better. Because, of course, you've got Dodger, your kid lead, and he's not a bad actor, played by Mackenzie Austin. As a child actor who, frankly, bears the brunt of the narrative, he's fine. He kind of evokes sort of your Macaulay Culkin knockoff type kid. There's nothing particularly wrong with him as a performer. And then you have sort of, your supporting characters. You have the bully Juice, you have the girlfriend Tangerine, and you have his sort of mentor, wizard character, Captain Mancini. And so, and then of course you have the kids themselves. And so you think, okay, this reminds me of later films that sort of obviously had that same style, like A Kid in King Arthur's Court, or The Bookmaster. That same kind of, we're going to focus on the kid, but the world that surrounds them is going to be not... Because the weird thing about it is the fact that he is, theoretically, the only kid in the film. Now, there are other kids, because Juice, Tangerine, the bullies are also supposedly kids. And this is one of the first weird steps of this film. And it's possibly not necessarily their fault, because on further research I understand it's not entirely a decision, like it's something that was in their control, which, because as you're watching it, you're going, these kids, these bully kids, had the same problem that a lot of 80s film and TV series had, where they cast 20-year-olds to play bullies. And so you have these, what appear to be adults, who almost look like they're in their 20s, bullying a kid that looks like he's 12. And immediately you're like, well, that's really weird. And the intensity of the bullying is so extreme that you go, well, this is practically like mugging and harassment. Like, this is no longer like, oh, this is what bullying was like in the 80s. This is just how, kids beat up other kids. It's like, no, this looks like adults beating a kid up and stealing his money in the streets. How weird. Now, the actress who plays Tangerine, Kate Barbary, was actually, weirdly, only a year older than Mackenzie Austin. But of course, and like I say, that's why it's not entirely their fault. But, he looks 12. He doesn't even look like a teenager. He looks like a tween. And she looks like she's about to go to college. So, and so they decide, unfortunately, to then also have a love plot line between them, which, because of the difference in their appearance, is incredibly disturbing and problematic, because it does feel like an older girl exploiting a younger boy, and their relationship gets a little bit too intimate. I mean, it's nothing sexual, but it's at least intimate enough that you think, why is this seeming near adult woman kissing this child? It's very, very strange. And then, of course, it goes into the fact that she, even though she is part of the bully group who beats him up and steals his money and almost tries to murder him at one point in the sewers, he seems to also have sort of this childlike crush on her, which then allows her to financially exploit him in terms of, like, her whole thing is this fashion. She wants to be a fashion designer, and because of plot, the Garbage Pail Kids seem to be good at designing clothes, so he uses them and she uses him to build up her line. And again, that's such a weird plot line, because it would be fine if it was sort of just a background of a character, but they spend so much time dedicated to this fashion designer aspect of the story, with her, like selling clothes outside of nightclubs, which is weird, to her being able to get these, better clothes and getting this label to present her clothes, and it's like, this is a lot of time and energy dedicated to this thing that children would have no interest. This Garbage Pail Kids film about this girl and her fashion dreams, and then also the exploitation of workers, almost, because there's a funny bit where they get the Garbage Pail Kids go into a quote unquote non-union sweatshop to steal clothes, and it's almost like it's trying to turn around and say to the audience, do you see the parallels? Because they are being treated as if they are a sweatshop. So yeah, that. And again, that's just such a strange, and the payoff towards the end about where, the fact that she exploits them and then kind of gets exposed and she's double crossing, and this Juice is actually the person like who's sort of pulling the strings. It's all weird, very weird. But then you have the kids themselves. And I get what they're going for. They're going for the grotesque, there's a snot one, there's a peeing one, there's a one who's vomiting all the time. And it's supposed to be, isn't it gross? And kids all love this. And of course, as an adult, I'm like, nah. I don't even think as a kid it would have been my kind of thing. But especially as an adult, it's so grotesque that you're just like, I don't really want to be watching this. And unfortunately, it does things where it just doesn't pay. It's almost gross for gross sake. And it's supposed to be this whole thing of, doesn't matter what they look like, they are, good in their hearts. They're just, weird-looking creatures. It never quite establishes whether they're from space or magic or what. And then you have weird things, like the fact that they make a big thing of, they're good-hearted and their looks don't matter. But then one of them, there's one called, what's he called? Something? Greaser? Greasy... Greaser Greg. who eats toes and fingers, and it's
That's
like
alligator.
oh, that's alligator. Sorry, mixing them up. Alligator, and it's like no, that's still not okay. Like I don't care that he looks like an alligator. He's still eating toes. So make of that what you will. The messaging is a little confused there. And then they do weird things. The world in which this exists feels like a world where it's like, okay, so this isn't the world outside our window principle. Because immediately you have Captain Mancini, who is a wizard. He's just a wizard. And it very strongly implies he's hundreds of years old. And Dodger just has water off a duck's back. It seems like there's a scene that existed before the beginning of the film where they met and he found out he was a wizard. Because for what seems to be a modern, normal kid, he seems to have no problem with that at all. And then when the Garbage Pail Kids are released, again, he's a bit shocked by their sort of escaping, but what they are and how they exist in our world, again, doesn't really seem to blow his mind. And then they have things like the home for the incredibly ugly, which of course is supposed to be funny, because it's supposed to be, oh God, what a weird thing to exist. But again, they don't really explain how it works, what it is. They do funny, sight gags, like one where it's Santa Claus in a cage when they break in to save the Garbage Pail Kids, and it's too old. Is it too old or too fat?
Too fat.
Too fat, which is a funny sight gag. But again, the sort of it's never really elaborated on. It is just a thing that exists in our world, or in the world of this film. And so, like I say, this clearly isn't our world, and Dodger, though he's supposed to be identifiable, seems to just roll with the punches for all the strange things that are going on around him. And yeah, and it's just a really weird beast of a film. I mean, they do, like I say, some interesting things. Like they have dwarf actors who are playing the bodies of the Garbage Pail Kids with giant prosthetic heads. And obviously that's supposed to be clearly sort of in the same mould-ish, kind of, if you squint, as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the time, which was entirely like puppets, actors inside these bodies that were also being puppeted to sort of create that slight combination effect. But here, it's not... It is weird to look at, but in a possibly a good way, and you think, oh, I could have seen this being quite interesting. But again, it's just such a weird film, and I don't get who this is for. I cannot believe kids even of that time would have loved this film. It's a curiosity film. It really is. Because you watch it and you think, I could only watch this with a beer in my hand, trying to sort of puzzle all the strange Frankenstein elements of it that sort of make up this beast of a film. But yeah, it's a fun one. It is a really, really strange watch. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment below and share the video. Subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell to get notifications of when new videos are uploaded. Check out my back catalogue of over 200 videos and follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I tweet about TV shows, films, and I share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube, either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.